Disney CEO Bob Iger has faced yet another embarrassment for the same reason: his lead actress in Snow White, Rachel Zegler. Just weeks after Zegler's controversial comments angered nearly 80 million Americans, Disney dropped the second trailer for Snow White, and audiences are determined to ensure the film flops. Incredibly, the backlash continues, with the trailer receiving just 27,000 likes compared to a staggering 800,000 dislikes as of December 10th. At this rate, it won't be long before the dislikes cross the million mark.
I'm not a mentat, but the quick math on this, it's a 14-to-1 ratio.
That's
14 downvotes to 1 upvote.
The interaction on the downside is...
You might be wondering, why is this remake causing such an uproar? Disney's live-action remakes have never been hailed as cinematic masterpieces. People rolled their eyes at Dumbo and barely tolerated The Lion King. So, what makes Snow White stand out as public enemy number one? The answer lies in a mix of frustration, nostalgia, and Disney's relentless push to modernize classics, whether anyone asked for it or not. Sure, the trailer looks rough, just your standard uninspired remake, but what really set off this firestorm isn't just poor visuals. It's the audacity behind the creative changes and Disney's ongoing mission to reshape beloved classics into something progressive at the cost of what made them special in the first place. Let's be honest, who actually wanted a Snow White remake? No one was begging Disney to redo this 1937 classic. Yes, the original was groundbreaking, being the first ever full-length animated film, but it's not exactly topping fan wish lists for a reboot. Disney's recent strategy seems less about fulfilling audience desires and more about milking its IPs dry. And really, there's no harm in leaving the original untouched. It still holds up today with its stunning artistry and historical significance. Yet here we are, stuck with a remake no one asked for, with changes no one wanted, to fix problems no one saw. The controversy isn't just about bad trailers or uninspired CGI. It's about how Snow White has been handled behind the scenes. This remake didn't just stumble into public disapproval, it sprinted straight into it. The backlash taps into a much bigger cultural battle playing out in Hollywood, one that goes far beyond just another disappointing Disney remake.
So what does this tell us? What does this tell us, Chris? It tells us the cultural significance of pissing everybody off, and not just our sphere, everybody. And this is why we talk about Snow White, the movie itself.
Disney is caught between two clashing eras. On one hand, we're in the age of IPs, where studios are too afraid to create original content, opting instead to recycle old ideas and rely on nostalgia to sell tickets. On the other, we're coming out of a period where studios, Disney included, pushed hard, maybe too hard, to inject progressivism, or what some call wokeism, into their stories. These conflicting priorities have collided head-on, and Snow White is taking the full hit. Let's talk about the changes that have fans fuming. First up, the dwarfs, or rather, the lack of them. Instead of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Disney initially pitched Snow White and the Seven Magical Persons.
Why?
Because actor Peter Dinklage criticized the original story for being offensive to little people. Fair point. But Disney's response? Replacing the dwarfs with vague, magical beings, which was universally mocked for being, let's be honest, absolutely ridiculous.
2010s, where there were demands from certain groups rather than audiences to make every female character strong. That was pushed so much and done so badly that people are tired of it. Whenever you give somebody too much of one thing, they eventually ask for the other.
Then there's the casting of Rachel Zegler as Snow White. Disney seems to have overlooked a crucial detail. Snow White isn't just a name, it's a description. Her skin is literally described as white as snow in the original story. Casting someone who doesn't match this defining trait feels like a fundamental misunderstanding of the character. Sure, race bending can work in some cases, like Halle Bailey's Little Mermaid, where she delivered a stunning performance, but Snow White? It's right there in the name. Here's the real issue. Many of these changes come across as condescending. Disney seems fixated on fixing its classics to align with modern sensibilities, but in doing so, it often misinterprets what made these stories beloved in the first place. From altering lyrics in The Little Mermaid to removing iconic scenes in other remakes, these so-called updates feel more like overreach. Instead of enhancing the originals, they come off as preachy, like Disney is telling audiences it knows better than they do. Take Snow White. Sure, the original isn't perfect by today's standards, but it's a product of its time, and fans love it for its timeless charm. Reworking it to fit modern ideals doesn't just strip away its magic, it alienates the very audience Disney hopes to win over. Disney's Snow White debacle is a wake-up call. For years, the company has relied on its classics for easy money, but with every misstep, it's becoming clear that this strategy has its limits. You can only push your core audience away so many times before they stop showing up altogether.
The fans, disrespecting Snow White, which helped build Disney, disrespecting half the country doesn't help your film. All press is good press is bullshit.
Then there's the prince, or rather, the complete absence of one. Early reports suggested that Snow White wouldn't be pining for a prince, nor would he have any role in saving her. And sure, nobody's demanding a damsel in distress storyline in 2024. But here's the kicker. Snow White was never about waiting for a man to rescue her in the first place. The prince wasn't the focus of her journey. He was a symbol of hope. Disney's decision to remove him entirely shows a fundamental misunderstanding of the original story. Instead of strengthening the narrative, it strips away a key element that made Snow White resonate with audiences for generations.
Disney fans actually wanted the love story. There is a demand for that, but there's not a demand for this. And Snow White just kind of represents how out of touch Hollywood is and how they're not actually giving people what they want with these movies.
Her tone? Let's just say it didn't sit well with fans. Instead of celebrating the original's legacy, her comments came across as dismissive, maybe even elitist. And that's the real issue. People don't want to feel like they're being talked down to, especially about something as beloved as Snow White. Zegler's remarks about the character not needing to be saved by the prince only made things worse. To many, it sounded like she was forcing modern sensibilities onto a story that was never really about romance in the first place. But it wasn't just what she said, it was how she said it. Snarky, condescending, and completely out of touch with the audience Disney is trying to win over. Let's be real. This Snow White controversy isn't happening in a vacuum. It's the result of years of frustration with Disney's approach to remakes. Audiences are tired of seeing their favorite stories picked apart and reshaped to fit an arbitrary modern mold. And the idea that these updates are somehow superior to the originals? That's not just tone-deaf. It's insulting. Take the decision to eliminate the dwarfs. Disney claimed it was to avoid offending anyone, but in doing so, they arguably created a new issue, erasing roles that could have gone to talented actors from the Little People community. Even fans who initially agreed with Peter Dinklage's critique felt that replacing the dwarfs with magical persons was an overcorrection that bordered on ridiculous. It's a pattern we've seen time and time again, Disney changing things no one asked to be changed while refusing to innovate where it actually matters. Fans aren't frustrated because they're resistant to progress. They're frustrated because these changes often feel performative, unnecessary, and completely out of touch with what audiences actually want.
People do fuck off. She literally says it, whatever. If you don't vote blue, I don't need your business.
May you never know peace. May you never know peace.
Yeah.
That's pretty harsh.
It's really fun.
So, what does all of this mean for Disney? Well, it's obvious the company's approach to remakes needs a serious overhaul. Instead of trying to fix classics or chase modern trends, Disney should focus on what made these stories timeless in the first place. Audiences aren't asking for perfection, they want authenticity. They want to see these characters and stories respected, not reimagined to fit some corporate agenda. Most importantly, they want to feel like their love for these classics is being honored, not dismissed as outdated or problematic. What do you think about all this drama? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more updates on woke Hollywood controversies and Snow White. See you in the next one.